Ralph Armstrong, how are you doing?
I'm blessed. I'm not stressed, and I ain't in no mess. But I'm okay.
That
Yeah.
sounds good. We were saying before we started rolling uh, that you were saying that you're working on some projects and things and staying
hmm
productive.
Yeah. Just I'm working on a new CD, and I've got some heavyweights helping me. My old schoolmate Kamal Kenyatta. I talked to Great Filling Gaines and Narada Walden. And, I've been taking my time working on it, and I got some ideas. I'm gonna move in another direction this time. I'm doing a little Miles thing. It's gonna be more. This particular CD is more R&B based.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's just a little different. I play everything. Yeah, they call me a fusion musician, but I still got that in me. I like to play rock. I just did a recording with William Duvall from Alice in Chains. He's a black rock guitarist. He's one of the most popular black rock guitarists since Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah.
And he's on my recording, actually. I brought him here. He's a wonderful guy, man. Wonderful.
Now, speaking of someone that um, plays different styles
hmm
and not just electric bass, but of course contrabass. Um,
hmm
uh, so I have an early memory of us playing together. I was a kid,
hmm
and you were playing on a must have been a fretless,
Yeah,
and
that's me.
all,
That's how I got started.
you were playing on a fretless, and and all I remember is seeing you reach around looking for something, and you grabbed a beer bottle, and then you started playing the notes with the beer bottle
Doing the
on the neck.
slide, right? Well, that
Yeah.
comes from my family. My dad always used to slide in Tennessee. He's
Mm.
from Campbell County, which is La Follette, not far from Knoxville, about 50 miles west of Knoxville.
Yeah.
And it's just an old Southern thing. A lot of bass players don't do that, but also you can copy the sound of Jimi Hendrix. You get like a sustain, like a
Mm.
feedback and harmonics at the same time with the bass. It's kind of different with the bass.
Yeah, that's it's one of those early memories that I have.
Yeah, I
I
was crazy back then too.
I'm
But you know
so
what? I want to say one thing. I really appreciate you saying the word contrabass because it's so funny. We're living in an age where a lot of musicians, and I don't know how I can say this, they're not educated. When and when I say educated, you could learn from reading about whatever instrument you're playing, the history, the physics, science of construction, what it's about, how it functions. And hearing the word contrabass, yeah, I really appreciate that because that actually, if you want to get to it, was let me word this correctly. That was the word used when the bass was finally modernized and perfected.
mm,
And that comes back from Carl Ludwig Bachmann in 1778 when the Germans added the fourth string and made it the opposite tuning of the violin in fourths,
yeah.
the contrabass. That's in 1778. And he did that from order of the King of Prussia, who was a real hip leader at that time. A lot of people don't know he was way ahead of his time. And that's how our instrument got perfected. And also at that time, Carl Ludwig Bachmann invented the tuning peg for the instruments that we have today. If it wasn't for him, we'd be using cello pegs. Jimi Hendrix would have been using cello pegs. They're called
Mm,
hat pegs. You ever seen an old double bass or a contrabass with those knobs that stick out?
mm,
You ever seen
yes.
those knobs? Those were invented by Carl Ludwig Bachmann in 1778. Ask Stanley Clark, he'll tell you about it. He's an intellectual. That's my buddy, man. We'll talk for 3 hours straight about the bass. I love him with all my heart because that's what it's about. Knowing your craft. And oh man, we're living in a weird world today where we got dummies.
Well, and I've said this in a couple of these interviews, but it's become like a meme. It's like, do you know it or do you Google know it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everything on the internet is not right.
Right.
Not. It's only good as what people put there. Because I had my son before he started working with Apple. My son is just, he's something else. He's working for Apple. He's an intellectual, Evan. And I said, Google it's spelled Gasparo da Salo, but it's pronounced Gaspari da Salo. It's the earliest bass maker record. And yeah, he said, well, yeah, anything. He's on here. But what it had on there is him being a violin maker. But this guy was one of the first bass makers ever. And they considered him being the inventor of the bass. Where if he wasn't an inventor, he perfected it from the oud, from Apple. He made basses that were 9 feet tall. You had to stand on a ladder. You would be pressing, and I'd be pulling it. He was something hell of a scientist.
Now, of course, what I meant by that, do you know it or Google know it, is that it seems like young folks have a particular skill set that will allow them to ask a question that will sort of aim them in the right direction, but as far as like actually having the head knowledge and the just the time with whatever the topic is, it seems like that's something that's very lacking, and unfortunately that extends to musicianship, and just knowing about your instrument, knowing how it works, understanding the physics of it, all of that.
And the technique is paramount to becoming a great player. Because, my teacher was Ron Carter. Ron Carter saw something in me, and actually he got in my teacher's behind because my technique was so bad at the age of 14. And he just got all over my teacher, Andy White, at the time. He said, how dare you have him play that way? His technique is horrible. You have to send him to me. And every time he would come here, he would give me lessons. My mother would drop me off at his hotel room, and he would watch the basketball games. He was a big Knicks fan. And I would just play a scale over and over and over, the tetrachord, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, until it sounded musical to him. And I used the proper technique. And he would say, it still doesn't sound musical at all. It's not right. The tone. And what he did, he had me work on my sound. Besides the technique, getting the tone out of the instrument. And I love him for it. I love him with all my heart for teaching me like that.
Now you played it. Now you played in the Detroit Symphony Orchestra.
No, I've done concerts with him. I've never sat in there. But I do play in the Fox Theater Orchestra, and I played in the Opera House, and I played with the London Symphony. I recorded with the London Symphony. And the Buffalo Philharmonic, what else? Milwaukee Symphony. So I went to Interlochen, and I'm pretty, I'm a pretty decent classical player. I ain't the best, but I'm pretty good. I play a lot of Dragonetti concertos and Bottesini, and I was fascinated with the history of Domenico Dragonetti, and a lot of guys have a thing where. A lot of jazz players kind of resent the classical player. But from what I found out, and like Ron and Buster Williams and Stan Lee, Christian, if most of the great jazz bass players had a classical background. Ray Brown, who was a friend of mine, Ray Brown taught me a lot. He was just a wonderful human being. He was like my hero as a kid. He grabbed me when I was about 18 years old, man, and had me play on every bass he owned. Just wonderful human being. I learned a lot about sound.
You were talking about. I think you might have said this before we started rolling too. You were talking about, um, this quarantine happened, and it forced you to take a break. You wanted a break, but you didn't
I
want
didn't
it this
want it
way.
like this because I like to
Yeah,
go
yeah,
out and have dinner somewhere. But
yeah.
everything's getting. I'm in Michigan. It's getting better. It's starting to loosen up. I think they open the restaurants up. Matter of fact, Wednesday next week. Because
You know,
I've
I
got
in,
about 4 emails from different restaurants.
I interviewed Rodney Whitaker for this series, and he almost said the identical thing
Hmm.
about needing a break, but
Oh, he
not.
need one bad,
Yeah.
bad because I'm waiting for him to go on sabbatical so I could take over for him. You know who he is, right? You know he's my student.
Yes.
And let me tell you something. I love him with all my heart. And when I had Rodney at Wayne State at the age of 15, he had the worst bass. This bass, it was so bad you could put flowers in
Mhm.
it. It was a piece of junk. And he got a sound out of it. He sounded like Sam Jones. And it's like Ron, it's in the hands, the sound. And I was like, this guy, if he had a decent bass, he was a kid. And I
Mhm.
knew he was going to be great. And I
Yeah.
love him and Cookie. Oh, he's Rodney can play. He's an intellectual of the instrument. He knows the history. He can, man. See, this is what I'm trying to instill in young people today. We got too many dummies. Books are like kryptonite. It's true. You'd be surprised.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I know I know I'm jovial, but it's the truth.
No,
They
it's
don't know nothing. And I had it's funny, I did a Zoom with some bass players, and it was like being in a ninth grade music class. I mean, these guys didn't understand triads to form, a dominant seven, major seven, minor third, nothing. They couldn't figure. I was like, what the hell? you know, 13 flat five. It was like being in a beginner's music class. And I'm not going to mention no names. I'll be quiet. Uh-oh. Sorry about that. Sorry about that.
it's all right.
Now I've got this iPad. I'm trying to put my big head. As you see, I don't know if you can see, I got the lights on downtown.
Yeah. Um. So you were talking about you said you got some emails from some restaurants. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I guess they're opening back up. I'm in. My parents are up in Michigan, Lansing area, and a couple of my siblings live up in Michigan. I'm in
Mm-hmm.
Ohio,
Yeah,
in
I know
Columbus.
Ohio State. You're still teaching Ohio State.
Yes,
Oh, great.
and it's uh, it's a little. I think things have progressed a little quicker in Ohio than in Michigan, as far as starting to open stuff up and
Mm-hmm.
slowly relaxing some of the stuff. And it made me start to realize, like, the longer I was in this quarantine, that we've been in this quarantine, um, like how important, like, personal interaction with other musicians is.
Mm-hmm.
Like physical interaction, like within proximity of them,
Mm-hmm.
and how much I just miss being on the stage. And uh, and I can't think of another. Uh, I can't think of another discipline, another career where uh, where I could have so many instant friends. You play with somebody one time, and then it's stuck with you. You just remember that
Right.
experience. I'm
Oh,
sure
my
you've.
God.
I'm sure you've probably had hundreds of those experiences.
I'll tell you one was when I played with Herbie. I was in the Headhunters. I took Paul Jackson's place. And I didn't know, it's such a funny thing, man, that Herbie never played one. He plays one every 60 bars. And I missed it. He looked at me, looking down, he looked at me like an owl. His one eye shot up. And he's such a wonderful, I've never seen Herbie Hancock ever angry. He has the best, I wish I had his temperament. And he just looked at me and I said, oh man, I'm sorry. But he's just such a mellow human being. And I learned so much from that guy. You know, him and Miles, you know, I had the pleasure of being in Miles' band in 1976. And we never played a gig because that was the year Miles had the car accident and broke his leg. Matter of fact, that first movie with Don Cheadle, that was when I was with Miles. A lot of the stuff in that movie was true. A lot of people trashed it, but it kind of upset me because that's when I was with Miles. You know, the only thing that was was fictitious was that English reporter they had there.
You know, I'm in that movie.
No kidding. I missed you.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a major role or anything. I was Cannonball, and
Nah, okay. I'm gonna watch it. I got it on my iTunes account.
yeah. Now I was Cannonball, but you know, Cannonball actually had hair. I was looking like this, but you know,
okay.
they couldn't really mention certain things. There's like he had to be kind of, but the music that we were playing, in the situation that we were in, you'll notice that. I mean, it's just like a couple scenes really quickly.
Oh, okay. Well, at least you're in it. That's a good thing. You got to chat.
Yeah, it was a lot of funny. I'll tell you one thing about Don Cheadle that I was pleasantly surprised by, because you know you hear a lot of stuff about Hollywood and about people being pretty kind of vapid and kind of standoffish, and you know, or they can be jerks, and there's just like a lot of funny stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so the experience I had with him, and I got to spend some time with him. He came in and he ate with the cast, and even with the extras. I mean, he was just like one of us, and we had a nice conversation about his process. Now, one thing I didn't know is that he played saxophone when he was in high school, and he talked to me about, and he told me a couple of the horns that he had. He had like some Mark VI, you know, good Selmer horns.
You know, I know about Selmer, yeah, Mark VI.
Yeah. And he was talking about how he would transcribe, and you know, the whole thing, you know, with the record and slowing it down to half speed and all of that. He talked about that, and it was kind of between him doing music and going to school as an actor, and he chose as an actor. But he never kind of lost that, you know, love for music and everything, and obviously support for the arts. He's been a great patron and supporter of the arts. When he did that movie, he wanted to have all musicians that really could play. So all of the extras that were musicians were actually really, I mean, it was an audition process. He really got like really good musicians, people that could actually play the music that we were pretending to play.
Oh, okay.
So Don actually started learning trumpet. He learned trumpet for that role. You know, and he was taking lessons and he's doing all this stuff, and
he did a great job because he really sounded like Miles. And there was only one thing that in the movie that upset me, and I'm gonna tell you what it was. And they should have mentioned that accident, because if you notice, he was limping in the movie. You know, he was dragging his leg. That's because he broke it.
Right.
And then later on, Miles had hip surgery, but Miles stayed out of music for like 9 or 10 years after that accident. A lot of the stuff, oh man, the guys, they tried to give Miles music to this other guy. Do you know about that?
Yes.
That's true.
Hmm.
I can tell you a lot, man. You need to get Vince on here, Vince Wilborn. But it's true. A lot of stuff people, oh, that didn't happen. It happened, you know, because it broke my heart, man. Because what happened when Miles when he couldn't play, me and Toomey and Reggie Lucas, actually Reggie got us the gig. All three of us were with Roberta Flack. And she was gonna get Al Foster to play drums. And I don't know. I don't want to say this on camera what really happened, but it didn't work out. So I was on an airplane. I was going to play with Frank Zappa at Avery Fisher, New York. And I get on the airplane. Back then, they didn't have direct flights going to New York. I had to go to Chicago. And I was in business class. And guess who I was sitting next to? Herbie Hancock. This is the weirdest thing. And he said, yeah, man, I'm going, because I knew Herbie from the tour we did. We did a little tour with Miles Vishnu. And he said, yeah, man, I'm going to see Miles in the hospital. Yeah, and I was sad because the gigs were canceled. We were going to Montreux, Switzerland. So Herbie said, well, come on, play bass with me. And that's how I got the gig with Herbie Hancock, because of Miles' accident. That's some divine intervention shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, Herbie's just wonderful.
I just wanted to say, I was saying about Don learning how to play trumpet, and remember he told me about his, transcribing when he was playing the saxophone. Well, he actually transcribed. I was on the stage with him during one of the scenes where he's playing Blue and Green. And he transcribed that solo. I'm standing next to him, and we're playing to a playback. All of the musicians on the stage in the scene, we're actually playing. We're actually playing, what's on the recording. And he is nailing it. He's playing, I mean, he's lick for lick. Everything is there. He showed me the transcription.
Wow, that's fantastic.
His handwritten transcription. So that just gave me a different level of respect for him. I've always respected his work, but that just talk about being a method actor. Goodness gracious.
Well, it sounds like, from what I'm hearing, he's intellectual.
Yeah.
And that's something that's lacking in our country today.
Yeah.
It's something, I mean, being dumb is paramount to being cool today or whatever. But anyway, man, it's good to see how, I hate to get off track, but how's your father?
My dad's doing well.
Good. Give him my blessings, because he was really instrumental in you. He took you everywhere.
Oh, he absolutely did.
He used to call me on the phone and ask me, what should I do with him? I said, just have him get out there and keep playing. No, he was, you got a great dad. I had one too.
I interviewed my dad actually as part of the series. And I was pretty focused when I was a kid. And so there's a lot of things that I sort of don't remember very well.
Well, I remember you sure look a lot different now. Yes, indeed.
But I had him on and I asked him a lot of questions. I mean, things that, because my students ask me questions frequently about like what I was practicing or, or what it was like to be playing when I was young or just that kind of stuff. And I honestly don't remember, And so those are always questions that I get my dad on the phone and say, okay, now, what did you have?
Well, your father brought you to every jam session that I remember I was on. And you would be there, and he had you sitting in everywhere, which was a good thing. He made sure you got your lumps in. Yes. Can I ask you something? You got that old picture of me up there, which is cool. I like that picture. That's a matter of fact. Have you seen the ad that comes with that picture?
I don't know that I have.
I'm very proud of it. It was a ad for Warwick bass, And
Oh
let
yeah.
me show it to you real quick since I'm sitting in. This one I'm kind of proud of. I don't know if you can see it.
You got to move it over into the field.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, there you go. Now I can see it. Okay.
Yeah. Well, that I'm proud of that because that went to a lot of countries, and that this is for that. This says Detroit Jazz in the background.
Hmm.
That's for Tommy Flanagan, Hack, who I worked with, Roland Hanna, Milt Jackson, Ron Carter, Major Holly, Al McKibben. God, all of the Milt Jackson, all of the Hugh Lawson, all of the jazz guys in Detroit, the jazz artists that never got their recognition, but that went global.
Mm.
So that was one of the proudest things I, in my career, to do that ad for Warwick.
Can you talk maybe about some of the endorsements that you have and
Well, I've been
uh,
with Warwick for, oh God, man, I'm getting old, man. It's been about 12 years now. 12
okay.
years. I was with Gibson Guitars for 20 years with them, and I endorse Harkey. I've been with Harkey for like 8 years, and now I'm using Aguilar, and I've got an amplifier I really like. It's called Mesa Boogie, the Subway series.
Mm.
Man, that thing, it's small. It has like 1,000 watts of power, and it's just awesome. You know, it's really lightweight, and the Aguilar is good too, but that Mesa, and they kind of custom make every cabinet they send out. They're out of
Mm.
San Francisco. And I endorse Labella Strings, thanks to Ron Carter. I endorse the Labella and DNR for my electric strings.
Now, how did that come about? I think one thing. Uh,
With endorsements,
yeah. So I
well,
mean,
you know, they see you playing all over the world. It's
yeah.
like they come to you. When I play with, Jeff Beck and a lot of the rock cats too.
Right.
So they come around and they say, well, we want you to do this, and they put you in the ads. And I'm at this age now. If the product is good and I like it, I endorse it. But I don't endorse everybody's product.
Right.
And I paid my dues, so I don't have to do it. And that's a blessing. That's hard work over the years.
Yeah. Sometimes I think. Well, not just sometimes. I think.
Oh, let me do this for you.
Okay.
I own 32 bass guitars. Let
Wow.
me do this. Let me see if I can. I'll turn this around this way. You see the ones on the wall?
Yeah.
Those are my Deans. There's the RD Artist Research Development and all kind of shit. Stuff. I'm sorry about that.
That's okay.
That's just some of them.
Yeah. I think musicians, young musicians, uh, with a desire to endorse a company or to get free gear or whatever, I think sometimes they get the order, they get it out of order. I mean, you got to get out and be playing and doing something so that companies would actually see you as an asset,
Yeah,
not that they just do.
that's 100% true. And also, you have to be a businessman.
Okay,
Because I'm not going to give you my name if you're not going to give me anything.
right.
I've done too much in my life, not to be arrogant or anything, but I'm not going to sit there and kiss behind. My behind kissing days are retired. I don't do it. I've paid my dues, and just certain jobs. I don't have to do. I've been in the unions, and next year I get my pension, and I don't have to do a lot of stuff. So I could sit here and I wish you could see the lights wasn't on the waterfront, man. I'm down here downtown. I love it. I'm on the 22nd floor. I've been
Wow.
here for It's my 10th year in my apartment here. That's about business. That's what it's about, being a musician. You got to be a businessman.
So I want to ask you about practicing. So,
Hmm.
what do you practice? What is your approach?
Well, the main thing I practice the tetrachord, the do re mi fa sol la ti do re mi fa sol la ti do. I ascend in half steps, and then once I get to past the 12th position down to the 14th position,
Hmm.
then I invert it, going backwards. Da 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 da. Then I take broken chords, 13 flat 5, da 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 da. And I practice that. I learned that from Eddie Harris.
Mm.
He was a scientist, man. That guy, he wrote some stuff. I played on ambidextrous, and that's like bada bada bubble, buddy buddy. It's very similar to Freedom Jazz Dance, and he had me play some stuff. It took me 2 days to figure out the finger. I had to literally figure out the fingering to play it. He said,
Mm.
"Man, you just take a 13 flat 5, you invert it, and hook that up to a F dot C. You start on C, then you go to the F dominant 7, and then you ascend in fourths, descend in fourths, ooh 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 Then you end up on a major third, da da da, da dee. I was like, what the hell? Oh, and I mean, you ever hear? I did a transcription for ambidextrous and Bassman magazine
Mhm.
about 3 years ago. This one hell of a voodoo better than Bubba. It's on the Eddie Harris trio that we did in Munster, Holland back in when time goes, 1986. Yeah, but that cat, he was a scientist. He was great.
All right, and what you talked earlier about some projects that you're working on.
Hmm.
You have do you have anything you want to plug?
The thing is, I gotta kind of keep this quiet because it's a major artist that I used to work with, and some I didn't. I'm doing and I'll tell you that. You know what? Later, I'm gonna call you when it's released. Now, I'll let you
Okay.
know. You can plug it in here, but I'm working on a fundraiser for the musicians. Me and uh, I can mention his name. It's a fundraiser. I can't mention nobody else. Narada Walden, my dear friend,
All right.
producer. And it's funny, you called me on the night that I used to talk to Aretha. This was our night, Friday night. That's
Oh.
the lady I really miss, a person I really miss.
Mm.
Because what's so funny about Aretha Franklin than a lot of vocalists? Aretha was a musician. She could tell you what to play. And that's the worst thing that can happen to a musician is being with somebody that don't know what the hell they want. Trust me, it's a nightmare. And she would just say, "Look, I just want you to play an R&B groove." And she really was a jazz musician. A lot of people don't know this, and I had to almost get in some knucklehead at CNN about it. I
Mm.
think Werewolf Blitz or somebody, and said, "Oh, well, she couldn't read music and da da da." Now, where did they get this crap from? Aretha could read music. She could tell you what to play. She knew all the chords on the planet Earth, and if you didn't play the right one, she would let you know, brother. And
Mm.
that separates her from a lot of the vocalists today that they can sing, they have talent, but they don't know music. They don't know a major seventh from a minor sixth.
Yeah.
So that's
Well, I
why
think
we
and part of that I think goes back to what it was that you were saying before is that it seems like there's a lot of young musicians that don't really know their stuff.
mm-mm.
Um, you know.
Yeah, and it doesn't hurt because even like I worked with D12 and Proof, Eminem's group, the Rhythm Kitchen Cats, and bless his soul. And those young guys were always trying to better themselves and learn rhythms, and they were always trying to grow, man. It doesn't matter what genre it is, it's just do it the right way. That's all. Always be open to knowledge. That's the way Miles was. I never will forget the first time I talked to Miles on the phone. Miles says, "Fat boy, I want you to play something that's hip." I said, "Yeah, Miles." I was so excited. "Yeah, Miles. I want you to find some little kids and see what they playing." I said, "Yeah, Miles. Yeah, okay. And if it's hip, I want you to steal it." I said, "Yeah, Miles." And Miles said, "And bring it to me." He was something. I learned so much from that cat. I never will forget how I got the gig. Miles, I got the gig when Michael Henderson left, and he told Miles about me. Miles heard me play at Avery Fisher with McLaughlin, but he wanted to hear me up close. So I was in New York with Teddy Harris, Harold McKinney, Curtis Fuller, Roy Brooks. We were playing at Bill Cosby's spot in the Village. So I called Miles. I said, "Miles, I'm in New York." Miles said, "I'll be through." So Miles walked into the club with a purple velvet suit on. And all you can see, no shirt, just it was like crushed velvet. So he looked at me, he said, "Fat boy." And then did like this. And walked out. I almost started to cry. So the next day I called Miles. I said, "Miles, why you leave?" He said, "I just wanted to hear you play one note. Michael was right. You got a fat sound. You got the gig." I can't tell you what he said after that on there. But I got a letter from his agent in Boston. I still got the plane ticket and all the stuff. But he was, we talked all the time. He always picked up his phone, and he was into getting new sounds and, something new happening. That's why the CD I'm doing now, the next one is different. And after this one, I'm going to do a straight ahead jazz CD. Straight ahead,
I was thinking about this, and one thing that was unique about Miles, and I almost can't think of a band leader, a prominent band leader that has the same approach that Miles did with respect to always having the most elite band. Like, everybody was ridiculous.
That's right.
And he would showcase each of them.
That's right. He loved young people. Loved young people.
Yeah, and I can't think of a band leader that has anywhere near the kind of prominence that he had that's doing it today, that has that same approach. It's almost as if there's like a fear of maybe being overshadowed or something.
Right. I have, let me tell you something. I want somebody. I don't care. That's good. That's insecurity.
Right.
And Eddie Harris was very similar to Miles. Guys like John McLaughlin. Oh, I just got off the phone with him yesterday, man. He wants you to play. You got to play with those cats, man. They don't care. It's nothing about that. If you play great, it makes them look great. It makes them sound great also.
You're talking about John McLaughlin. I interviewed Joey DeFrancesco.
Well, I went on the road with Joey for 3 years with Miles Smiles, with Wallace Roney, Rick Margetza, Alphonse Mouzon, Joey. Let me tell you something. That was one of the best bands I ever played in my life, and we all got along. Larry Coryell was a guitar player. And then the first group I was in, Omar Hakeem played drums, and then Alphonse played. You know, we got along. We have oh my God, we had so much fun together. We traveled, laughed, everybody got along. And the funny, one night, just me and Joey used to laugh about this. When Larry Coryell used to drink, I was a kid, and I was on the road. It was John McLaughlin and Larry Coryell and Philip Catherine. My vision, we traveled all over Europe. So I didn't know Larry was an alcoholic at that time. And he banged on my door at 4 in the morning. Boom, 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 row! Open the door, row! I thought he was sick because I was so dumb and naive. I was no more about 18. So he comes to the door and he said, Ralph, look at my eyes. I said, what's wrong with your eyes? I'm Chinese. Now, I know it doesn't sound, let me finish. Let me tell you what's funny about it. Don't say nothing yet. Let me finish. Let me go to the whole thing. Do you know, for almost 20 years, I thought Larry was part Chinese. Until, wait a minute, until 2014, and me and Joey D, asked Joey D about this when we talked to him. We fell out laughing. And then he would do a solo, and me and Joey standing next to him. I got a lot of pictures of us. And Joey, he looks over at me. I said, damn, you hear that stuff that Larry played, man? He said, yeah, Joey just playing. We playing it all. And he said, yeah, he's Chinese. And we cracked up because I was so gullible. I thought he was, you know. And actually, oh, shoot, man, we laughed, you know, because, you know, a lot of the stuff, the Orientals use the modes too. They use the Dorian and Lydians, you know, in their music. So I was like, oh, he is, you know, and it was so funny. And, you know, just a lot of good memories, you know, but we all got along. Now, last year, I took Rick Margetts, I went over to Australia, and we played together. Rick was in the band, and Wallace, and, you know, we lost Wallace with the COVID.
Yeah.
That was really hard for me, man. It's been really a bad thing, you know, with musicians, taking a lot of musicians out.
Yeah. I interviewed Antoine Roney.
Oh, yeah. I recorded with Antoine.
And we talked a bit about his brother, and and I'm going to be interviewing Rick Margetts. I think it'll be next week, actually.
Oh, give him I love Rick. He played. We had a ball in Melbourne last January. Last January we went over there.
Yeah, and I'm going to, like, as soon as we're done with this interview, I'm going to send Joey DeFrancesco a
Please tell him I said
yeah.
Tell him about that story.
I'm definitely gonna do that. That's hilarious.
Yes, and Joey is a wonderful guy to work with too. He really is. And we played. You know what's funny? Let me tell you why we got along good. I used to play bass with Jack McDuff. And we argued every night because he would play the dang bass. I said, what you need me for? You playing the bass? So finally, I picked up the guitar and started playing the guitar. And he said, well, look here, look, we had to work this out, man. Well, I'll tell you what, you play the bass at this spot, then keep it in the low range. The low range, keep it low. And I played the low end, and he played the high end, and we worked out really great. And I know how to play like a work bass player. So me and Joey we just played great together. Matter of fact, me and Joey, I did a gig with Joey where I played the electric fiddle. At the festival, me and Joey played because I know how to play with organ. I keep the foundation, the smooth tone, low tones, consistent. You know, like an organ basis. And I also played with Dr. Lonnie Smith as a kid. Yeah. So I've been blessed. I've been blessed to. I work with so many people, Sean. A lot of, like I was talking to Kamal. You know, I work with Cedar Walton, Milt Jackson, Grady Tate, Toots Thielman. Toots was actually part of the Eddie Harris group we had with Sherman Ferguson back in the '80s. We traveled. Um, Man, just so many. Thad Jones, I work with. I played with Louis Belson. I work with a lot of great musicians. Charles McPherson. Um, who else? Marcus, you know Marcus Belgrave, of course. Matter of fact, I think that's how I met you.
Yes,
I
yes,
believe.
it was through Marcus.
Marcus took me around when I was a kid, like 13 years old,
Mm.
and I just been blessed. Had such a wonderful career. Still doing it, man, and a lot of good things going on.
That's great. Thanks again for agreeing to do this.
No,
I
just have me come up to Ohio State, and so I can see what your bass players are doing.
Absolutely.
I would
That's a
love
done
to.
deal. We're going to do that. That's a done
Because
deal.
it's so funny. I've had all my good teaching jobs I've had have been at Ohio. I was at
Mm,
Oberlin for 3 years.
mm.
I would be there now if my wife at the time would have let me move to Cleveland. She didn't want to leave Michigan. Yeah, but Ohio's it's good. We got great schools there. And what I
S-
do, I sub for Bob Hurst at University of Michigan when he's not there.
So this is going to be sort of backwards. We kind of jumped in the middle, and then we kind of went different directions. It's been pretty organic. I do want to talk a little bit about um, uh, your upbringing, your
Oh,
childhood. I
okay.
want you to talk a little bit about maybe some early music mentors. When was the moment that you knew that you wanted to play music for a living?
Okay, well, let me tell you about that great, because that's something that I'm doing in this documentary. Well, what happened, my father is Louis Bluey, Howard Armstrong,
Mm.
and my dad was a old Tennessee intellectual. He came from a part of the South. It was called the Switzerland of the South. It was, Eastern Tennessee, which was not a part of the Confederacy. A lot of people don't know that.
Mm.
And those people there were decent people. There was racism, of course, but they let you know about it. You knew it. But most of the people down in that region got along very well, white and black. So my dad studied at Tennessee State, and he spoke 14 different languages, and he
Oh
played
goodness.
all the string instruments. Now, let me tell you, then he had me, married my mother, Anna Armstrong, back right after World War II, because my dad was in the Navy. He was on the Arizona in World War II, and when it got blown out the water. So what happened, when I was a kid, my father wanted me to learn the violin because he was a great violinist. He was known for the violin. Let me tell you something. I tried everything on the earth to get a sound out of that thing, and I sounded like Jack Benny. Squeak, squeak, squeak. I could never get a sound out of the violin. So one summer, I was 7 years old. I went to see my uncle LC, my father's brother. His name is Lee Crockett. He was from Tennessee, and my aunt Vicky. And as a kid, people leave impressions on you. My uncle drove a brand new Cadillac, and back then they were sharp dressers, and they had this nice place over near Woodward, uh, and he was just such a sharp guy, and he had this beautiful golden brand new K bass violin. And when I heard them low notes pop out of that sucker, I said, Daddy, I want to play the big violin. I want to play the bass. I want to be like Uncle LC. I almost pulled my father's pants off of him. I pulled on that man. He said, doggone it, dang name it, dang man. Well, I'll see about it. Leave me alone. Then the next week, Daddy, I want to play the bass. I can't play it on the violin. And he got so mad at me bugging him. He said, I told him, I said, I need to play the bass. So you know what he did? He took an old German neck, put it on some old pine boards he found, and he was a good luthier from Tennessee. They knew how to cut, whittle, and he made me a bass with a round hole in it like a guitar, and it was a little bit bigger than a cello. And I played it. The first two notes I knew on it were G and D. And a lot of the songs, Dinah, if anyone find one, G, D, G, D. And then hit the C right in the third position. I hit the C. Boom, boom, boom. The fifth. Doom, doom. And then that's how I got started with the bass. So what happened, I started playing that. And I went to elementary school. I had a teacher that let me play. She played piano. I played the bass. I bring it to school. Then I went to Barber Junior High School. I didn't run into. He was my music teacher. His name was Alfred Hickman. He was a saxophonist, and he was from East St. Louis. Now he was really instrumental in my career because he was the first person to tell me about Miles Davis and Charlie Parker. And if you ever seen this character on Andy Griffith, the Barber Floyd, that's the way Hickman, he really looked like him. He was very similar to this man. And he told me, you got to see Miles Davis. He told me that Miles was his favorite boy. And then he started bringing records to school. And what he did back then, which used to be mandatory, he taught me the tuba. Because if you play bass fiddle, you play tuba. That's the way a lot of guys, Howard Johnson, you got to play the tuba. They go together. So after that, I learned him. Then he started me on cello. Then I met Marcus Belgrave. He introduced me to Marcus. And then he had me go to Cass. I went to Cass. The very first bass lesson I ever got from a professional bassist was from Ray McKinney, Harold McKinney, his brother. And he taught me, as much as he could. And then when I got to Cass, my teacher was Emmanuel Cortez, and he was from Budapest. And he taught me the basic technique. And then I went to Interlochen, and I had Larry Hurst, was professor up at the University of Michigan. I had some great teachers, and Ron Carter. And now another person who gave me a lot of pointers was the great James Jamerson. He took time to teach me. Matter of fact, he's really one of the main reasons I got my big break out of Detroit. I'm going to tell you what happened. James Jamerson came to Watts Club Mozambique in 1973. He just got through playing with Marvin Gaye. And he sat there, he had on his leather suit, and I was playing with Carolyn Franklin. I was just a kid. And he says to me, the reason I can play the fretless bass, I know the technique. I was like, what the hell is he talking about? Fretless bass? I was like, fretless electric? And back then you didn't see any. So what happened, I looked in a Fender catalog, and there it was. And I took $50 and had a fretless neck put on my P bass. So I got a call from Michael Henderson, said, come over, I know these guys in Connecticut to be the bass player. So next thing I know, I played over the phone. And they sent me an airplane ticket with Sandy Taranto and Michael Narda Walden to go to Canaan, Connecticut, which is outside of Hartford. And Narda was getting into Sri Chinmoy. And John McLaughlin came up there and heard me play. And at the same time, Jaco Pastorius was auditioning. He was walking around with his bass without a case. Me and Jaco were good friends after that. We were very tight. And he went crazy over this fretless bass I had. John McLaughlin. He went nuts. I just love it. And it sounded awful to me now. The sound I got, because it was a very dead sound. It wasn't legato, it was very percussive thumping. wasn't even staccato. It was just a thump, thump, thump kind of thing, because of the flat wound strings and all of that. But that's how I got it. If it wasn't for James Jamerson turning me onto that instrument, I never would have got my big break because I would have been using this, fretted instrument. And what's good about me going to Interlochen at the time, because all of the music we did, the first recording was with the London Symphony. You had to be classically trained to play that stuff. And that's the rest is history. I've been blessed to work with Santana and John, and I played with Jeff Beck and just all the rock cats. I've been blessed.
Truly. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time and your energy.
Oh, man, you kidding? I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you, Sean, for doing that. And I didn't know you played bass. It looked like I like that blue one back there. It looks like a real good bass hanging back there. What is that?
Okay, so I've got so the one that is, I'm not sure what the orientation is going to look like. Probably it's going to, okay, so the one that's furthest this way.
The blue one.
Okay, yeah. So the blue one is a Harley Benton. It's a PJ.
Oh, okay. Well, it really looks nice. I thought it was a Yamaha because of the pearl fingerboard.
Well, Harley Benton makes sort of close representations of other instruments.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, how does it sound?
It's great. I mean, it's...
Oh, okay. The great thing about a bass is I don't give a damn what it's made out of. In the words of Buster Williams, is it made out of wood? It's the sound. Some of the... let me tell you this story before we get off. I got to see. You got me started. And this is... If you ever see Rufus Reed, he'll tell you about the story. My first time going to Italy, I had 2 weeks. I was teaching at the University of Rome. It was me. Oh, God. I can't tell you all this on the camera. I had to call you on the phone, but it was me, Roy Brooks, and he was in rare form that time, Curtis Fuller, Dave Burrell, and Marcus. Marcus was there. I'm trying to think it was a saxophone. It might have been Charles McPherson, maybe. I think it was Charles McPherson. So we had a gig at the Opera House. So I've been in Italy. The greatest basses are bass violins come from Italy or Germany. The science goes way back. So I'm in Italy. The home of Gaspare Desillo and Galliano and all of this. And they had the worst instruments. They were worse as Rodney's bass to get me to play. They were like, Ingo Hart. Man, the word garbage. I mean, it was just junk. I got so mad. I said, I'm not playing nothing on this concert if you don't get me a good Italian bass. Guess what they did? They went and got the principal player of the Italian Opera Orchestra, Francisco Sali, who's still living, and they took me down under the Opera House to a vault. It had to be about 40 basses there. Beautiful, huge, violin-shaped basses, gamba-shaped instruments, brand new with purfling, with women planting wheat on the back of them. Just, man, $50,000, $60,000 instruments, So finally I saw this bass. It was sitting in the corner. It was a little bitty bass. It was the ugliest piece of... It looked like somebody took a hatchet and hacked the sides out of it. It had it looked like it had hatchet or sword marks on it. And the ribs were at least 5 inches or 6 inches thick. It was like wounds, like it was in a battle or something. It was coal black, ugly, rusty looking, like it was put underwater for 10 years. And I played this thing, and it had the richest, low, resonant sound I've ever heard. One of the best sounding instruments I've ever heard in my life. And Francisco looked at me. He said, "You look at that bass?" I said, "Yes." And he said, "That's a my bass." And guess what it is? Yeah, guess what it was? It was a Carlo Giuseppe Testore, made in Milan about 1721. And that bass today is worth $1 million. It's the same bass as Giovanni Battistini played. But what happens with old Italian instruments, the varnish, it's old resin, just like in the paints. It's that oil resin, it turns black with age. It was, and that thing had a deep, it sounded like a cannon. And actually, basses are made like cannons to a certain degree. They really are. Now, I get up to the theater upstairs, and Rufus Reed comes up. He says, "This is a Testore. It's a special occasion." Rufus goes in his pocket and pulls out this expensive bottle of Remy. And we sat in the opera house. He played the bass. I played it for an hour. And we sat and drank Remy Martin. And then Max Roach came by. Him and Roy Brooks were in there doing their thing that day. And he said, looked at us like, "What do you know about the bass? You know about the bass." And here Roy Brooks comes back. You know about Roy. But it was so funny. Me and Rufus laughed. He said, "These two nutty drummers kept messing with us." No disrespect to Max, but it was a weird situation. So anyway, we ended up playing a concert. It's one of the greatest times in my life. But I got to tell you something what's really funny about that concert. We're playing. And all of a sudden, we don't have a drummer. I look for Roy. Roy is in a basketball outfit, throwing the ball on the back of the opera house. We look, I can tell you, Curtis said, "Marcus, get this crazy. That's sucker sweet little kitty. Marcus, where you bring him out here?" And the people, the Italians they were rolling. And I was like, we couldn't figure out what was going to look back there. He waved in the back playing basketball. We on the Oh my God. It was, I never forget that.
Oh my goodness.
And but, oh God, I can't tell you everything on camera, but I never forget that. Talk to Rufus Reed, you asked him about that. And Betty Carter was there. Betty Carter. I tell you who else was there. You know Curtis Lundy? Bass player. Played with Betty Carter for years.
Okay, right.
Curtis was rolling. Curtis had tears coming out his eyes. And we were like, we didn't know what to do. We're standing there, we're still playing. We're like statues, and Roy just dribbling the basketball. Like Elgin Baylor. Ooh, I could write a book, I'm telling you. A lot of crazy stuff happened. But that's what I'm trying to get to about the bass. It doesn't matter what it's made out of or how it looks. It's how it sounds.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about it. This is like Ron Carter was telling, I'm not going to mention his name. He probably hit me in the nose. But it was a great bassist. And Ron looked at him and said, "You know, you need a better bass." Now check this out. So the person says to Ron, "This bass is 250 years old." Ron looked at him and he says, "Don't you know they made bad basses 250 years ago?" It don't matter. It's how it sounds. It's a funny thing. I got a bass behind me, the one in the center. I never liked him. And I guess whose bass that is. That's Teddy Harris's bass. I don't know if you remember, it had a broken neck and it stayed in the dining room. And I had it restored. It's one of the best sounding bass. I don't even like these instruments, but it's an Engelhardt, and it's got an ebony fingerboard on it. I put about $1,000 into it. Got it hooked up, and the thing sounds like $1 million. It's heavy as hell. I had to get a wheel for it. I have a Fantoni. That thing is heavy as a china cabinet. But that's what people have a misunderstanding about. It's the sound.
Yeah.
It's the way it's put together. That's what's paramount. Man, it's good to see you, Sean Thunder Wallace. See, there I got started, and I done talked way past an hour. See, man?
Nah, it's great.
Yeah, have me come up to Ohio. I love to come up here because I love it. It's so funny. I just like the vibe up here. You're in Columbus. It's a good place to be. Good place.
yes, I like Columbus quite a bit.
Yeah, I see. They keep you there, and also, as far as a teacher, they have it set up better. They have a better teachers union than I believe Michigan. No offense, but I was in. I just sold my shares. I was in their retirement. The Ohio State Teachers Fund.
Hmm.
Yeah, I just moved my money out of there. Yeah.
All right, man. Well, thanks again.
Good. Yeah, keep in touch. It's a pleasure. And I'm gonna call you and tell you some more stuff. Because that thing at the Opera House was so funny. It's another part to it. I can't tell you all of it. I can't put it on the air unless you got an X-rated show. No, I'm not gonna do that. I want you to keep doing your podcast, man.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
All right, man. Well, I'll see you later. You be safe.
Please do. I'm doing. And by the way, get tested for COVID. Did you get your test?
I haven't had my test. I've had no symptoms, and at least
but the thing
what the rules are.
Get it
at least with
done
the
anyway.
yeah, with the way that the rules are, at least where I'd have access to getting a test, I'd have to have some kind of symptoms before they would even allow me to get the test.
Crap! That's silly. Not in Michigan. You get it done because it's asymptomatic. You can have it and spread it. That's the problem. People not getting tested. And the test is nothing. That little rod, they put that little broom straw down your nose. And I told the lady, I said, it felt good. Can you do the other side? She cracked up. Because it's nothing. It really isn't. It takes 120 seconds. And, it's nothing. So you take care of yourself and get tested here if you get a chance.
All right.
All right, my brother. Thanks for having me.
All right, now.
All right, peace.